I want to talk about two issues in this particular video because they are sort of linked. The first one is whether people on the Voice to Parliament will either be elected or selected, and the second one being whether it's going to be better for Aboriginals to hear from people on the ground. So would policy directed at Aboriginals be better when you hear directly from people in the community, people on the ground, so to speak, is what the government's constantly been saying in order to justify a yes vote. Now, elected versus selected. So on the project show, Anthony Albanese was invited on that particular show a couple of months ago, and he was asked directly by one of the journalists there, one of the presenters, whether, I think he was asked how people were going to get put on the Voice, and asked if they're going to be elected or something, and he basically said that they will be elected. That's on record. He said elected. Now, in this current political climate, when people hear the word elected, they basically hear the word vote. And we elect the Prime Minister, we elect representatives, therefore if Voice representatives can get elected, they're going to be elected by the community, okay? Now, that's not true. Again, the purpose of these videos is to basically expose all the main pillars of the Yes campaign. I've already done it for the Australia Day, proving that they want to change Australia Day. Now I'm going to be doing it for this very, foundational pillar they're harping on about, that it's going to be democratic and they're going to be elected. So Albanese is saying on national television they're going to be elected, and then on the Voice website, which basically stipulates what the Voice is going to be like, it clearly uses the word selected. Now, I've made a video about that with screenshots, so it's on public record. I've recorded everything. It's online still. If you're interested, just Google it, you'll find it. But if you want to see what I'm talking about, go on my Telegram channel, type in the Voice exposed selected versus elected, something like that. Use the word selected and you'll find it. And that'll filter it and you'll see the video, and you'll see Anthony Albanese saying they'll be elected, and then you'll see screenshots from the Voice website, the official website, explaining what it's going to be like, saying that they're going to be selected. So selected being undemocratic, people on some board are going to just choose who's going to be on the Voice. Now, in my experience, when it comes to choosing, and I've been involved in community groups in the past, there's an element of favoritism. You need to be sycophantic, there's sucking up to people. I've never done that because I don't like doing that. Any position I've got in the past has been because I've been very good at what I do, and people see value in me as a person and my skills and my passion. But I've also seen people do the opposite and just either buy their way in or suck up and basically try to get a position by being sycophantic, basically. And that's going to happen with the Voice. You're going to have people who want to be on the Voice, who are going to do whatever it takes to impress the people who are going to decide who is going to be on the Voice in their particular region. Because the Voice is going to be, I think, 35 different regions, I think 24 members, something like that. That's what they're saying, according to the Marshall Langton report, which is just one, a guide, which is what Anthony Albanese has said that might happen. That's not 100% guaranteed, but, there's a good chance that that's what it's going to look like, 24 members from different parts of Australia. These people are going to be, paid a lot of money, and it's going to be a very good position for them to have because of their influence and in terms of monetary compensation. So knowing what humans are like, especially Aboriginals, because they love money, as we all know, those people that want those positions are going to be sucking up a lot to people in their community, possibly even being corrupt in order to get those positions. And it's not going to be democratic. These people who are going to be selected, keyword selected, are not going to be going and doing campaigning with like you do in council elections or federal elections where you try to get everyone's vote. They won't need to, okay, because the people in their community, which probably comprises of thousands of people, are going to have no real say in who this person is, who the representative is. It's going to be people on some sort of board who are going to select a couple of people to be on the Voice, and those people are going to be given money or whatever it is that they're going to be doing, whatever tactics they're going to use to get that position. So this Voice, if it gets through, it's going to lead to that sort of corruption, that sort of culture of sucking up. And apart from that, it's basically completely, the way it's going to operate is completely different to what is being publicly said. So online we're seeing that these are the words selected, which means selected, undemocratic, and in public Albanese has said on repeated occasions that people on the Voice are going to be elected, elected, which is not true. My next point is about this idea that getting advice from the community when it comes to formulating policies will actually lead to better policies and better outcomes. I've seen so many interviews from Albanese on radio, on TV, in Parliament, using this argument to justify why people should vote yes. By consulting people on the ground, we're going to get better policies. And because Aboriginals are so backward and the gap is so wide between white Australia and black Australia, a lot of people will fall for that because, unfortunately, there are some stupid people out there. A lot of people are stupid. They want better outcomes for Aboriginals. They basically say, we need to close the gap. We need to close the gap. I feel sorry. There's a lot of goodwill, apparently. A lot of goodwill for Aboriginals. I personally don't care. I just don't see them as my issue. I don't know why I should bother wasting my emotional energy on these people. But for whatever reason, a lot of people do. And a lot of people want the best for them. Okay? And when they hear these one-liners that, consulting with them will lead to better outcomes, which will mean closing the gap, that taps into that egalitarian ethos that a lot of people have of wanting better for Aboriginals. Okay, so we need to attack that argument head on. And when I was in high school, I did a lot of debating. I was on the debating team. I was a very good debater. After high school, I worked for DAV, Debate Association of Victoria. I was an adjudicator, basically adjudicating debates. When it comes to debating, I'm very passionate about it, and I'm very knowledgeable about it. I literally worked in that industry for a couple of years, and during my high school years, I was debating from year 7 to year 12 on the high school team. And one thing I learned is, when it comes to debating, one of the best things you can do is literally deracinate the opposition's arguments. Find out what they're on about, okay? Find out what their main position is, what the crux of their argument is, and just attack it and demolish it. But don't let the stand on. Okay, so you refute their arguments, but don't just refute arguments, using statistics or whatever, or all the time, just base level attacks. Go for the root, go for the foundation, and attack that. So we need to be telling people why this fundamental argument that the opposition has, that the pro-yes campaign has, that by consulting with Aboriginals they will lead to better outcomes and therefore closing the gap. We need to basically attack that and prove that it's wrong. Okay, because it is wrong. And it's wrong for a number of reasons, and I'll explain that now. I'll give a personal example. I've got a lot of beef with the official Greek community here in Melbourne, Victoria. They've wronged me in a lot of ways, and I've exposed them in my own sort of way. I won't get into that, but basically it's full of communists, like the Greek community board, executive people that run the show, are full of leftists, and even one homosexual, I think, which is pretty fucked up. Anyway, these people aren't representative. They've said things and they've done things that don't represent Greeks in Melbourne. And I've exposed them. I've exposed them in the past on numerous occasions, and they've ignored me. And a lot of people in the community are very dissatisfied with their representatives, so to speak. But they don't do anything about it because it's just too complicated. Challenging them at an election, just too complicated. But a lot of Greeks just don't like what they're doing politically. The political comments they make on Facebook and on their YouTube, etc. So you've got a situation where there's a disconnect between the rank and file Greek community and the people that represent the Greek community, the president, the treasurer, the board of directors, all that sort of stuff. There's about 20, 30 people, okay? And there's like almost 250,000 Greeks here in Victoria, Melbourne especially. Sorry, 100,000 or something. Anyway. So the disconnect. Now, same thing's going to happen with the Aboriginal regions and the Voice, because the Voice is going to be comprised of different representatives of different regions, and probably a board that decides on who the representative is. But the rank and file Abo, the person in the community, in the rural community, who are just high on drugs and stealing petrol and glue, they don't know what's going on, and they don't give a fuck, and not going to bother, raising their voice and, putting their opinion out there, because they're just lazy, okay? They're indolent. So basically, what you're going to get is you're going to get elites, usually left-wingers, okay, but it's leftist Aboriginals who are going to take over this whole Aboriginal voice industry. We've seen it all the time, every institution, universities, it's all these communists who are in. Even currently right now, people that are on the referendum working group who are writing the voice and who are campaigning for it, people like Thomas Mayo and Teela Reid, they're literal communists. They've praised communism in the past. They've both said they want to change Australia Day. I think Thomas Mayo changed his mind about that because he knows that's not going to help him out for the campaign. But both Teela Reid and Thomas Mayo are on record promoting communism, okay, and also wanting to change Australia Day, which is a communist plot, as we all know. And that's before we even have the voice. Once we got the voice, I can guarantee you, people more radical than that are going to fill these positions of power, okay? And what's going to happen is, just for the Greek community, there's going to be a disconnect between what most people in the community actually want and think, and what this tiny minority of like 2 representatives per region are going to be talking about and speaking to the government about and making representations. Now, earlier this year, there was a situation in Alice Springs where the crime hit a hiatus. Obviously, the crime's always been bad in Alice Springs. It's full of Aboriginals and it is constantly causing trouble. But in recent times, after the grog ban, after the Labor government basically disbanded the coalition's policy of a cashless debit card where you can only pay for certain goods without cash or something. So when you go to the grocery, you can only buy certain products, you can't buy booze, and that really helped limit the amount of alcohol in the community and therefore the amount of violence and crime. Now, Labor believes that that's paternalistic, okay, that policy, and they've always been against it. They got rid of it, and then lo and behold, like within a few weeks, crime just went nuts. It just went crazy. There's more grog on the street. Aboriginals can't handle alcohol, and they were just causing chaos. And then they brought the grog bans in again, and the cashless debit card, I think, again, and that basically helped not fix the situation, but limit the damage, okay, and contain the situation. And basically, the reason I'm telling you this is because the people who recommended that the government should get rid of these policies that the coalition brought in are the types of people that would be on The Voice. People that aren't really, rank and file people. Okay, because rank and file Aboriginal community support the card, generally speaking, but all these communists who are against white people controlling black people, obviously they're going to be against this policy because we are controlling, what they can buy at the supermarket. Okay, but we have to because they're nuts. They're Aboriginals and they're going to be causing chaos. Anyway, that's what happened, and basically this idea that getting advice from people in the community, so to speak, who are actually just communists, okay, is going to lead to better outcomes. Well, we saw what happened as a trial run with Alice Springs. We had people, elites, Aboriginal elites, leftists, who weren't in the community necessarily, but who claimed to be in the community, recommending to the Labor government that this is paternalistic, these are racist policies, get rid of it. And Labor basically got rid of the policies, and the crime rate went up, and that was bad for white Australians, and it was also bad for blacks. Okay? So that didn't do anything to close the gap. It actually made it worse. It actually, led to violence, led to more resources being wasted, led to a lot more shops being damaged. It actually made it worse for everyone, for the entire community, not just Aboriginals. So that's just one example of how getting advice from the community or people on the ground isn't necessarily a good thing, okay? Because the people you're getting advice from are ideological. They are ideological people, okay? And they don't think practically, okay? That's very important to understand. Another example of this, there's a lot of examples which I won't get into, but I'll give you one more example. Western Australia, I think BHP or something destroyed some Aboriginal heritage site, okay, a couple of years ago, and then they passed these ridiculous cultural heritage laws, which basically made it, difficult for farmers to and homeowners to basically, plant a tree in their own yard because they couldn't do that unless they had permission from Aboriginals. And then even the council had an issue because they had to pay $2.5 million in cost compensation before they could do a tree planting thing, and just ridiculous. It's obviously an industry, and the people that recommended these laws to the WA government were people who are so-called in the community, Aboriginal people. Okay, I've seen videos of them asking the government this. It's all online. The ABC did a video about it a couple of days ago, actually, after they abolished the laws. The same people who recommend these laws will start complaining and saying they've ignored us. Now, most Aboriginals in Western Australia wouldn't support these laws, didn't come up with these laws at all. But this small minority did. Okay, and that was a bad idea. Okay, the government abolished those laws because it limited our freedom of movement, it limited our property rights, all that sort of stuff. And it got to a point where a lot of farmers in WA were campaigning against it, and they were associating these ridiculous laws with The Voice. And it's obvious that the government in WA strapped them because they didn't want these policies to influence the referendum, basically. So, again, that's another example of how these elites, these Aboriginal elites, these communists, are telling government to do a certain thing, okay? And those policies are actually shit, and they're not going to work, okay? And that happened without The Voice, okay? And the beauty of, not for democracy, but at the very least, people listen, the government listened in this case, they got rid of these laws. That's because we have no voice, okay? Once you get the voice, you can't get rid of it. And there's going to be so much pressure when the voice makes a policy recommendation. There's going to be a lot of articles in The Guardian and the ABC going to be like, oh, they want this, Aboriginal people want this. And then any government doesn't do that is going to get criticised. It's going to be castigated in the media. It's going to be attacked, and governments are scared of that, and they don't want to deal with that. So we're going to have a situation in the future, if The Voice gets up, where governments are literally going to be scared to go against The Voice because they're going to be attacked by the media. Okay, so basically, those are two examples of how people on the ground can get things wrong. Okay, and that's happening now. It's happened now before The Voice. It's going to be a lot harder for things to change and reverse things when you've got a voice enshrined in the Constitution. It's going to have a lot more power, a lot more influence, okay? And government's going to be a lot more fearful about actually changing policies if they don't actually work, okay? And Thomas Mayo himself, one of the architects of The Voice, has said The Voice will punish politicians. But that's, again, punish politicians. So if a politician doesn't agree with The Voice, basically The Voice and people that support The Voice, which we know is going to be ABC and The Guardian and all those fucking retards, they're going to be attacking the government. Government's going to lose votes. They're going to get, they're going to wet the bed, and they're going to be basically doing whatever The Voice says, including implementing and maintaining policies that don't actually fucking work and are bad for everyone. Okay, so in summary, be aware of these two particular issues, the selected versus elected. Albanese has lied to us. They're not going to be elected, they're going to be selected as per the government website. And when it comes to community, not everything is what it seems. Just because people in the higher ups say something doesn't mean what the rank and file believe. And the people who are going to be on The Voice are going to be extreme radical communists who are going to buy their way in and suck up and create that sort of culture. And that's going to lead to bad policies for everyone. Spread the video, spread these ideas, make sure people understand these ideas, because they're very important things. Always attack the fundamentals of what the opposition is saying. That's very important, and that's what I'm doing with these videos. Okay, Australia Day video has been addressed. I've dealt with these two issues right now. There will be more videos in the future, so please stay tuned. Hail Victory.